Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first of two Gilman Scholarship Express workshops here in fall 2020. So my name is Andrea Dvorak. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm Associate Director of Off-Campus Programs here at Augsburg University. So we're going to walk through a short presentation that I have, and we'll have some Q&A time at the end. So let me just share my screen here. Let me just make sure. Just making sure. Okay, so here we go. This is the agenda for today. So I'm going to talk through the scholarship and what the eligibility requirements and deadlines are. We'll talk a little bit about how you can best choose a program, the application process for the scholarship, and I've got a lot of tips on writing a winning application. So that's a big part of this presentation. And we should have some time for questions and answers at the end. So the goal of the Gilman Scholarship, this is a national scholarship for study abroad, which has been around for a long time. Their purpose is to increase participation in study abroad among groups that are typically underrepresented in study abroad. And they consider those underrepresented folks to be these. Students with high financial need. This is part of why the Pell eligibility is a big piece of being eligible for the scholarship. You do have to have a high financial need. They love to award students from diverse ethnic backgrounds, students with disabilities, first-generation college students, and otherwise also students who are underrepresented in study abroad. Especially they consider these to be STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, math. I also want to highlight, now there's something called the McCain-Gilman Award. So this is specifically for military veterans or children of active duty military. So if that's you, there's sort of another scholarship called the McCain Award that you can apply for. So the eligibility requirements for the scholarship, the first is you do have to be a citizen of the US. So if you're a green card holder, if you're a DACA or undocumented, unfortunately this isn't for you. So this is really for citizens of the US. Second eligibility requirement is receiving that federal Pell Grant. Now you can be receiving it now when you apply, or you can maybe not be receiving it now, but you know you will be able to receive it then the term you're planning to study abroad. So it can sort of be either or. Next, you have to be an undergraduate student in good standing. So you have to be an undergrad. This isn't a program for grad students. And you have to be in good standing, meaning you have to, you can't be on academic or disciplinary probation. Your program must be at least 3 weeks long, so that's another piece of it. That's 3 weeks is kind of the minimum requirement, so usually that's a summer program, or semester experience, of course, is long enough. And then you have to propose to study in a region that's under a level 1 or 2 travel advisory as issued by the Department of State. And so we can look at that a little bit in more detail, especially as it relates to COVID, of course. There are more travel advisories out there right now that are 3 or 4, so the higher levels. And finally, for that Gilman McCain award, this is $5,000 flat award, and that would be for folks who are a child or dependent of an active duty service member during the time of your application. So Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Coast Guard. There's another aspect to the Gilman, which is called the Critical Need Language Award. So this is essentially additional money available to you if you're also planning to study a critical language while you're in a country where one of these languages is commonly spoken. You can see the list of languages listed there. This is sort of a supplement. So the Gilman Award is up to $5,000, but you can get up to $8,000 if you're also studying a critical language. So you can see here the list. There is an additional essay that you have to do talking about how you're committed to learning that language. You can see I highlighted some languages here. These are the languages that would be taught in places where we have an exchange program already. I have other programs where you could potentially do some of these others, But I have exchange programs where I know you can take Arabic, Japanese, or Korean. Okay, so how to choose a program that works. Most of our programs are eligible. It's sort of figuring out which one works for you. So a big part of that is figuring out, what are your academic and personal goals and needs? What kinds of programs would meet your academic needs? What would help you professionally? Those are sort of the top things I would consider. Next, you can sort of go to those personal goals, but you're better off choosing a program that really fits you academically and professionally. And then hopefully also meet some of those personal goals you might have. Summer programs, again, check that length. It does have to be at least 21 days in country. That can't include any of your travel time, so it has to be at least 3 weeks long. Another sort of way to help choose a program is meeting with one of the advisors in our office. You can email abroad to set up an appointment if you want. Abroad@augsburg.edu, you can see our email here. You might talk with a regular academic or staff advisor or faculty advisor to just get more of a sense of that academic side of it as well. And finally, we do list here, it's a good idea to check the State Department travel advisory levels. Again, only 1 or 2 are eligible. Lots more are in 3 or 4 now because of COVID. So that's something that I know Gilman is really looking at. So I hope we can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Not Mexico though, so we do have, as you might know, Augsburg has our own program in Mexico. It has been on, I think on a 3 level for a little while. So unfortunately that one would not be available, but most of the other places where you might go should be available. So the application process for Gilman is 4 components, and they are these. You have to give some basic idea of the program that you're planning on doing. So the name of the program, what are the dates, you have to give some cost information that you, as best as you can tell. So you have to give some basic information about the program you are applying to, that you're applying to. Next, this is really the meat of the application, are the statement of purpose and the community impact essays. So there's 2 different essays, and so that's a big part of the application. We're going to talk a lot more about the essays and how to write strong essays in a little bit. Next, you have to have official or unofficial transcripts that you submit to them. They used to require official ones at the beginning. Now they do accept unofficial ones, but if you're awarded, you will have to give an official one at some point. The official transcripts from Augsburg are about $6, so it's not too bad, but it does need a little pre-planning. You got to order it and wait for it to come. And then the last thing you have to do is select your Augsburg advisors. You have to select a study abroad advisor and a financial aid advisor who's going to review your application and approve it. So we have 2 advisors. We have 1 for each of those roles. So you would choose myself, Andrea Dvorak, and then you would also choose Casey Jarvla, who's the advisor in the financial aid office. So here is the statement of purpose essay, just so you can see kind of what that's about. There are 4 sort of real questions in it. How will studying or interning abroad help you achieve your future academic or professional goals? So big thing to talk here about your goals. They want to know why you selected a specific program or a specific host country. So it can't just be like, I've always dreamed of traveling. It can't be so general as that. It should be more specific about a particular program, a particular country. Next, they want to hear how you're academically prepared to be a successful scholar abroad. So this, so think about your skills. They want to know also if there's significant academic difficulties that you face and how you've sort of overcome those. So this is an opportunity to talk about challenges you've had and how you've overcome those. And then last, there's more about that what knowledge, skills, or experience will you draw on to meet the challenges of going abroad? So thinking a little bit more about those challenges. So that's the essay. A few tips about these. So some things to consider. What are the factors that led you to specific programs? Was there something about the style of program? It has a homestay, that's part of why. Like, is there something about the design of it? So being as specific as you can about that, I think, is really helpful. Again, that specific country, why that country and not any other? I think that can sort of be a minefield. Sometimes we choose a country based on assumptions we have about that, or music we've heard from that place or something, and that can be a little challenging because the sort of reality on the ground might be very different. So something to think about there. How will this program impact your academic and professional goals? Again, not necessarily personal goals. They don't necessarily want to hear about that here. So really thinking about, what is this going to give me for my major? How is this going to help me be a better professional in X field? Those are things you should really think about. Definitely highlight any distinctive components that might really make this program stand out. So a homestay, an internship, field research, volunteer activities, different extracurriculars that are offered that you're really excited about. Highlighting those and talking about, again, tying them back to those academic or professional goals would be really key for sure. Here's now that question about the challenges. Think about challenges that you might have faced in your decision to study abroad. They want to hear a little bit about that. For example, maybe going to college while working and taking care of siblings, that gives you a skill of juggling multiple priorities, for example. So that could be a challenge and some skills that you've gained there. Another example would be, your experience with a disability might have made you great at finding, cultivating, and utilizing campus resources. So there's a few different ways that you can sort of think about what's the challenge and what's the skill that it's taught me. Other challenges might be being a parent while you're in school, being an athlete, for example, finding ways to sort of balance all of those things. Even specific fields of study, again, those STEM fields, for example, it can be more difficult to incorporate study abroad. So definitely highlight some of those challenges. As much as you can in all of this, be specific and be personal about you. And if you have space, include what inspired you to want to study abroad. So you might start with something like that, or those might be some of the first things you might write down. And don't throw that sort of stuff away, but make sure you've covered all the rest of this before you get into that or before you add that stuff in. And if you do include it, make sure to tie it to those goals. Okay, some keys to winning as far as this essay goes. Really, why this program? The more clear you can be about that is so important. You can study Spanish or political science in a lot of places. Why is, X place Spain, or why is Panama? Why is that the place to do that? So, being really specific about that as much as you can. Next, one thing to really think about is that you do need to represent. So it might feel a little awkward, but you do need to be explicit in your essays about which underrepresented populations that you identify with. So if you're a STEM student, you need to say so. If you're a person of color, you need to say so. If you have a disability, etc. So, I think it can be difficult to think about how to be so explicit about this, or maybe you sort of think it's obvious as you explain sort of the circumstances of your life, but often it's not very explicit and it's only hinted at. If you don't state it explicitly, the reviewers of the essays cannot really take it into account as a specific challenge or specific reason why they might want to award you. Connecting to your future. So this is such a key thing. So many awardees are the folks who really do this well, and folks who do it poorly or only partially just really miss the boat. So, the future might be unclear to you. That's, typical, but you can really still state the ways that a program will help you develop a skill or, help you see yourself in a particular future. Maybe what you hope will happen and give you a chance to try something you think you're going to want to do. So really try to connect to that future, even if it seems a little unclear to you. Personal stories are so important. I think, reviewers read a lot of applications, and so if you have a great personal story to tell, it can really make you stand out. But you need to be efficient in making your point, and you need to tie it back to some of these other issues around goals and stuff. There is a lot of info to provide, and you are limited in your space. The good news is that Gilman offers a lot of help for this. So they have great essay writing tips. And there's a 15-minute video that they made on composing competitive essays that I really encourage you to watch. That's available on their website. Okay, the second sort of essay section is the community impact proposal, and here it is. So you sort of need to talk about two areas. The while abroad, how are you going to be a citizen diplomat? And then upon return, what's the sort of project or how are you going to impact your community? So there's two different sections here. The while abroad, I would say, as a US citizen, how are you going to represent and share what it means to be an American during your program? So they want to really hear about that. How are you going to seek opportunities to become engaged and have meaningful interactions? And then when you return, you need to have a project where you're going to increase the awareness of study abroad and the Gilman program, and with specific audiences and et cetera. So those are the essay prompts. So that's what those are. So here are some quick tips about those essays. First, I would say be kind of brief about the citizen diplomat question. There's not a lot of time to speak about that. You don't necessarily have a lot of space. And it is a little bit more abstract feeling for most students. So I wouldn't force that necessarily. Get inspiration from examples on the Gilman website for the proposal, the service proposal. They have so many great examples there that can really give you a sense of what they're looking for. One thing I would say about the service proposal is make sure that it's doable. I think a lot of students can be kind of overambitious in what they think they might do. Remember that when you come back from your study abroad experience, you're going to be back in classes, back in the rest of your life. And so it's got to fit into all of that, whatever your project is. Give yourself a timeline to complete it too. I think if you can do that, it starts to feel a little bit more reasonable to the readers and reviewers of the essays. Think about your academic interests, your skills, and your hobbies, and how you can incorporate those. So I think, so many of us, have sort of a side thing. I really, enjoy this as a hobby. That might be a great way to sort of engage with a local culture, and might be a great way to bring it back here. Think about groups you're engaged or involved in. That could be at Augsburg or outside of it. So maybe religious communities, volunteer organizations. What are the kinds of places you can spread the word? Also, like at Augsburg, what kinds of groups are you involved in? Student organizations, community organizations, campus government. There's all kinds of different things like that. Student groups within your major, for example. So thinking about those groups, how can you spread the word within those groups? You want to be really clear about your target population. Which students are you targeting? I'm gonna talk to athletes because I'm a volleyball player, so that's the group that I'm really gonna talk to. And so how are you gonna impact that group with your project? Being really clear about that. They really want to hear how you're going to integrate your experience abroad into your project. So they want you to connect the abroad time and when you're back in this way. So you have to sort of imagine what you're going to be doing. You don't exactly know on your study abroad program, but you've got to start to think a little bit about that so you can have something to say at the end when you get back. And again, they have a lot of help. There's frequently asked questions and some follow-on service project videos that you can watch that I think are really helpful. Okay, so some winning ideas, I think. Sorry, there you go. There's me. So some winning ideas as far as that community impact proposal. Here are some different things that you could think about in terms of who you can reach out to. I think K-12 outreach can be pretty impactful. Many of you might still have connections with, your local elementary school or middle school or high school where you were. If you can find a local teacher that maybe you still know who you can connect with, that could be a cool opportunity. Think about your major or your academic program. So, what are maybe you can develop a study abroad info page for your major or something like that. Campus office outreach, this could be like trio class. Some of these different offices, if you work with those offices, if you use their services, how could you promote study abroad within one of those groups, for example? You could work with our office, so study abroad office outreach. Come and ask us what our needs are. We always are looking for more help, especially from students who studied abroad, getting student perspectives. You could create a study abroad organization, student org. You could collaborate with us on our social media, etc. But there's lots of ideas. Host a photo exhibit, speak to your religious community. There's so many different kinds of ways that you can do that. Even an article in your hometown newspaper. I think generally the projects that really stand out are more interesting and more strategic or have a lot of impact. So that's, I would say, a key thing. Okay, so a few more keys on the winning application here as far as just in general the application. So plan ahead. This is a big part of it. The deadline comes up really fast. There's so many other things going on in life and classes and home and whatever else is going on, work. So you want to give yourself times to write some drafts, get feedback, and potentially rewrite some sections or heavily edit some sections. That's going to really make your application stronger. Make sure you answer every question. So as you probably noticed, the essay prompts have multiple questions within each one. And it's very easy to kind of get carried away on one question and kind of skip over other parts of the questions. So, one strategy might be to sort of almost make it like an outline and put each question in a doc and start answering, answer each question under each, under each question, so that way you're sure you're covering everything. I would be careful to avoid cliches as much as you can in your writing. Things like, I love to travel, or sort of stereotypes about a chosen country. These kinds of things feel generic. Again, they don't feel very personal to you. So I would, again, focus more on the academic and professional reasons for your interest rather than those strictly personal reasons. Proofread really carefully. The things like poor spelling, bad grammar, incorrect punctuation makes it really difficult for readers to even understand what you're talking about. So those things really get in your way. Think about using, for example, the Writing Center. Think about other folks you can ask. So this is the next point. Make sure to get your draft reviewed. Think about who you can ask. I'm happy to review drafts of Gilman essays, but there are others on campus who are willing. The TRIO advisors tend to be great at reviewing essay drafts. Other advisors you know and trust, faculty well, even older siblings, the writing lab, etc. So there's lots of folks that can help with that part. And I would say this is my big takeaway. In my experience working with Gilman and looking at so many essays, I think the folks who reviewed carefully their drafts, got their drafts reviewed, and incorporated feedback into a final draft, those folks are the most likely to win a Gilman Scholarship. They are national scholarships, so lots of people apply, but not everyone really works hard on their essays. So if you make it really clear that you've spent time on it, you have a much better chance of winning. Okay, I want to quickly just highlight the deadlines. So you do have multiple chances to apply. The way that Gilman has set up their deadlines, you can apply every October and every March. They have 2 deadlines every year. But within each deadline, you can apply for multiple different terms, and so you could apply multiple times. So you can see here the deadline now this coming October is October 6th, and you can apply by that date for study abroad programs in spring 21, summer 21, fall 21, or next academic year, 21-22. So that's a lot of different times you could apply. So for example, if you're thinking about studying abroad next summer, you could apply in October, and if you don't win, you can apply again in March, because you can see summer is still available to apply for in March. So this is a great opportunity if you apply once. So this is a reason to sort of plan ahead, because you could apply multiple times if you don't win the first time. So you can see here the deadline. Your deadline as a student to finish your application is 2 a.m. basically, Central Time. It's midnight Pacific Time, but it's 2 a.m. Central Time on October 6th, so that's in a few weeks. You'll be notified at the end of November, so you'll hear pretty early, and that's great. And again, you can see the March deadlines there. You should hear by the end of April. There are so many resources to get more information about the Gilman Scholarship and what you can do to improve your application. There's frequently asked questions on their website. They have great essay tips. They offer webinars and workshops all the time. There are live ones, but they have lots of recorded ones that are really useful to watch. So I really encourage you to look at that. As you may have seen from some of the other messaging about the Gilman Scholarships and workshops this time around, there are also Ask Me Anything sessions that the Gilman advisors and previous winners are hosting on Zoom on Thursdays at 2 o'clock or on Instagram Live at 2 o'clock on Fridays. So those are some more opportunities. I really would encourage everybody to take advantage of those and hear as much as you can about Gilman and how it works. So I want to send good luck to all of you as you think about your Gilman applications. We have had so many winners at Augsburg, and I'm so proud of all of them. You can see here 2 students who recently won. Carden Olson here in the plaid shirt was a psychology major and went to Copenhagen last summer. And Kyle Huseman was a film major. He's still on campus, I think, and he was in Japan in the fall of 2019. You can see him here volunteering at a elementary school. So we've had lots of Auggies win Gilman scholarships, 11 of them only in the last 2 years. So I really encourage everyone to apply. Thanks for being here.